This is Toon Talk Weekly, episode 253. This week, Brad and I explore the far reaches of space, trying to reach the end of the universe, when we check out the brand new TBS series, Final Space.
First time I got a girl's number before I even said hey. You see, I like that. I like a girl with a lot of phones.
Actually, this is the solution to an internal inconsistency in Planck's constant that's never been solved because until now, no one realized it was a problem. And speaking of problems, maybe you should leave before you become one. As in now.
Or I could buy you a drink.
Really?
Let's get wild. How about you buy me a drink?
Wow. I mean, no, but wow.
The day just keeps getting better.
Where is that kid?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Toon Talk Weekly. This is episode 253 of the weekly cartoon podcast. Prodcast, that's what we're calling it now. All about cattle prods these days. I'm Jake Williams. I got a co-host here, Brad Chmielewski, joining me once again to chat cartoons. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well, man. I don't know, but tongue-tied. Like anytime I think I have a good idea for that new intro, I need to just shut
maybe
it
you're
down.
just drunk. You know, it's the weekends. Been drinking.
It's more like just doing yard work. But can you be like yard work drunk?
I guess.
Because if so, that's what I am.
All the pollen kind of got you all hyped up.
Yeah, it's allergy season, and I just can't control
there you
what
go.
I say. Welcome to Toon Talk Weekly. If you're new to the show, we've been doing this for a few years now, but every single week we pick a different cartoon and we chat about it. Sometimes we've had the privilege of checking out like entire series of shows when we have more time. Or, like in the case of this week, what we're going to do is talk about a few episodes of a series and try to get a feel for it, I guess, and let you guys kind of know what we think of it. And this week, we're doing a brand new show that actually, we talked about this, I think, when we talked about the show Deep Space 69.
Yeah, because it has a similar look. It's kind of a similar look, but it has the same. It happens in space, and there's a mission, right?
Yeah, I think I was getting confused. Maybe I was doing searches for like new space cartoon or something like that. But basically, this show is called Final Space. And it came out in February, so it's only February 2018 is what I wrote down. It's pretty, it's coming out soon. I can't quite remember. I believe one of the other shows that we talked about, there was also like a creator or someone else who like this was his new show. But I'm not familiar with I wasn't familiar with the name. The creator is Olan Rogers, who I guess is known for creating shorts or animations and stuff online.
Okay.
So kind of cool that it's a brand new series. It's kind of categorized as an adult animated show, but it is on TBS, which I think skews a little bit older. And the look and like some of the comedy, I would say, fits into that like Family Guy vibe. I think it's doing more interesting things than Family Guy has sort of gotten long in the tooth at this point. But I think
Right. Is Archer on TBS or is that on Adult Swim?
I think it's on FX.
Oh, FX. So yeah, whatever. Same. It's all the same crap.
So it's which app do I need to download to watch your show?
Yeah. It's being created. It's what? There's like two companies that actually own it all. So whatever.
Yeah. Are we kidding at this point?
Call it Channel 1 and Channel 2. That's all we need.
But so I think it's about time we checked out the show because I thought there was a lot of buzz for it, at least in like my circle of Twitter friends or whatever, that I noticed like we're saying like, hey, the show's coming out. You should check it out. I follow a handful of people that work in the cartoon industry and they seem to be talking about it. But then I realized I hadn't heard anything about it and it's been 3 months. And
I did hear when it ended because it just finished. So it's like the season was over and I believe it got picked up for another season.
yes, yeah. I think that's what brought it back to my attention was that it got renewed. And I was like, oh, good. We should check it out. So the first episode is 10, first season is 10 episodes, but the newest season actually got renewed for 13. So clearly they see something here. If you check out reviews in and around the web, you definitely see some mixed bags, and I think we'll get into that a little bit. There's parts of the show that I actually really love, but there's other things that actually take up quite a bit of the show that are not as funny. Like, they're not my favorite parts of the show, and I think they're pretty prominent too. So that kind of, it bummed me out a little bit watching it. Okay. It's got voices in the show of some famous actors and people you've heard of, tons of people: Fred Armisen, Tom Kenny, of course, famously the voice of SpongeBob, and many other things, David Tennant, Stephen Yeun, Tika Sumpter, Ron Perlman, John DiMaggio, who is Bender, I believe. I always forget, but a very well-known voice actor. Andy Richter, Conan O'Brien. Exhibit is on this list, so I had to bring it up.
Oh, Exhibit? What voice is Exhibit?
I don't know. I don't think we've gotten there yet. I can't imagine. And I guess what was cool about the show, dude, the way it premiered was it actually premiered on Reddit on February 15th.
Oh, okay.
So they put the first episode up on Reddit. Then it went live, I think, on TBS's website. And then later that day or that week, it went up on the actual channel. What's cool is a little bit about the backstory of like how this show came to be. I guess it was originally posted. It was going to be a show called Gary Space in 2010. So the creator, Olan Rogers, posted it to his personal YouTube channel and said, I've got this like 10 episode series planned. But I guess after 3 episodes, the series went on hiatus for 2 years. So
weird.
I'm sure I didn't actually look up the pilot. That would actually be fun to check out and tweet out. But I have to imagine, I think we've covered enough of these that it takes a lot of work to produce to produce a show.
Yeah, so maybe they did those 3 and we're like, oh shit, we want to make this better.
Yeah.
We need some more time.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And again, I can't speak to the quality of the pilot, but that sounds like a pretty cool way to like start the show, I think. Fine. Like, dude, it's like we talk about it all the time. A month doesn't go by where we don't talk about an idea for like, hey, this would be a fun like little miniseries thing. But like, time, man, it just goes, and you don't find the time to put into actually producing something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But then the pilot, I guess, was posted it was seen by Conan O'Brien in 2016, who invited them to pitch the series to TBS. The animation is produced at LA's Shadow Machine and outsourced to Canada at Ottawa's Jam-Filled. And they use Toon Boom Harmony, which doesn't come as a surprise to me, because I think that seems to be the standard these days.
Pretty standard, yeah. Oh, yeah, I forget Conan's on TBS, so he basically runs the station now, right?
I mean, I got to imagine he's got to be one of the highest rated shows on the network at this point. Like, people...
Guys, I don't know what channel TBS is. I don't know what's on it. So besides Conan and Final Space now.
2 shows now on TBS.
Yeah, I think I got the website up. Was the I think American Dad is now. I think they either have the syndication rights or it moved over there.
Mm-hmm. Also, wasn't Tyler Perry's Everything was on TBS for a long time? I feel like that's where his shows were. I think he had multiple sitcom type shows.
Samantha Bee's show on there? I thought that was on Netflix, but
yeah, I mean, dude, again, it's up there with I think that some networks aren't spoken in the same breath as things like a Netflix or Hulu that seems to have these originals they're pumping out.
Right.
But it's not hard to see where these networks obviously probably have some good content. We've talked about Archer before. I love that show. It's on FX. I don't watch anything else on FX, but that's where I got to watch that. Another fun fact is that the show actually uses NASA space imagery for a lot of its backgrounds. So a lot of that stuff isn't necessarily, I'm sure it is doctored in certain ways to match the cartoon, but kind of cool that they actually use real stuff.
Oh, I didn't even pick that off. It didn't stand out or look any different to me.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't like a gumball thing, right? Where it looks like way out of place or something like that. But what can you expect from an episode of Final Space? Essentially, I think of it as like a serialized show where you follow Gary Godspeed. I kind of wish they kept his name Gary Space. That's a pretty great name. You follow him on his intergalactic adventures. He has a sidekick that he discovers in this first episode called Mooncake, or he names Mooncake. And we learn very quickly that this cute, adorable green blob alien is actually known as a planet destroyer. And and we get to see...
He's a Death Star. He's a mini, cute Death Star.
The squishiest Death Star. He's a plush Death Star, really. And together they kind of go on this journey to... So the description here is saying that that I've written down here says that they go unlock the mystery of where space ends, if it actually does exist. currently, I've watched 2 episodes. It sounds like you've watched about the same or a little more.
Yeah, I had just started the 3rd episode, so.
And what I've seen so far is a few different storylines that you can go down, but the main one being that this evil little like wizard villain named Lord Commander is trying to track down Gary and Mooncake to get Mooncake back. It sounds like he is a weapon of his to control whatever bits of the universe he needs to control. So to me, it has yet to be. You've also got relationships with like Gary. You've got Avocado, who we'll talk about in this episode.
Little Cato.
Little Cato, which by the way, I didn't realize until I looked it up. Avocado is spelled avocato, which is pretty clever.
Ooh.
Nice. So there is some interesting stuff there. There's lots of interesting storylines, but I haven't seen this grand scheme of like, we're just trying to find the end of space yet, if that comes into play at all. But now knowing that all the episodes are out, I can go check those out. So the main characters we'll talk about today, of course, Gary Godspeed. He is essentially I don't actually know what he really is. I want to call him an astronaut, but really what we learn is that he impersonated a member of this like imperial like elite crew of pilots and destroyed a bunch of stuff, and now he's on a prison ship. Right.
So their prison is like solitary in space.
Yeah. I don't even know. Does he have any like responsibilities on that? Because it's all bots on this ship with him.
When he meets Mooncake, he's out there like repairing a satellite or something like that.
Right. So that's his manual labor. That's his punishment, I guess. We do have Mooncake, the little adorable little plushy Death Star. 2 of the robots that you can encounter pretty quickly. One is Kevin, just spelled KVN, who
the jerk that is Kevin.
Jerk. He's super. Just wants to be your friend. In fact, I think Kevin's role is supposed to be a companion, like a friend to like any prisoner on this ship, and Gary can't stand him. Which is
too nice. He's too nice of a guy.
He's too nice, wants to hang out all the time. And he's always getting cookies. Gary's never getting cookies. You have Hugh, who is kind of the voice of the ship, like the AI that's kind of talking to you through what you need to do and giving you instructions. I believe that's Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob. Lord Commander is the main villain. We do encounter him a couple of times in these first 2 episodes. Quinn seems to be the love interest that kind of... I feel like they've got to get together sometime because the main credits scene in the beginning, the opening, the sort of 3D spin around them fighting aliens suggests that they would group up and fight together, but we haven't gotten that far yet, or at least I haven't. So she is involved. Then we have Avocado and Little Cato, who is his son, and we can get into their dynamic in a little bit here. So, man, that was a pretty big description, I think, of what Final Space is. Do we want to just jump in and talk about what we experienced with the show in the first couple episodes?
Yeah, for sure. So you do need to watch the show in order. You can't watch it like a lot of other cartoons where you want to just pick up an episode here and there. Like, you got to start from episode 1 and kind of go through, because you meet new characters, you learn the mission, you learn the dynamic. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say hard to start, or you can't just stumble upon it, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that they do quite a bit of cutting back and forth in time periods to like show you what built to this moment, or there's an unexplained moment so far to me, I think was the very first shot of Gary floating aimlessly in space that we weren't quite sure how he was going to get out of. The reason I don't think it's the moment where he's floating in space later in the episode is because he's wearing a different spacesuit. So I have the impression that this happens way later and we just haven't quite gotten there yet.
Oh, okay.
But we very quickly learn that Gary is on this ship. He's totally bored by it, this like prison solitary ship, and he doesn't want to hang out with Kevin. He keeps recording like captain's logs. He keeps calling himself the captain of the ship. Gary is a very immature guy. I guess I'll bring it up now. I think the part about the show that I don't love is a lot of Gary's humor, which is weird because he's in most of it, honestly. What I think is that I think his level of humor is more to like an adolescent level, and he's so incessant about it. Like, he's doing it all the time. I don't really know how to describe it, but like, he has this voice of, and I believe the voice is the creator of the show, but he just like has this thing where he's always kind of whispering about his own story, like telling his own, like I feel like that's what he's doing. He's like a kid
monologuing himself. Like,
yeah, like a kid playing with his action figures or something, and like telling himself the story or something.
Right.
So those are my least favorite bits. However, I do know like there are moments where he's a very irrational character too. Like he just does things to do things, and so those things make me laugh. But yeah, those were some of my least favorite bits, I think.
Okay.
But early on, we get the flashback of 5 years earlier when he tries to impress Quinn by getting into this jet. And this is where we learn that he just sits down. He's like, how hard can this be? He blows up a bunch of ships, and that's kind of what gets him here in the first place. But it's also in this first episode that he encounters Mooncake, sort of his foil or like his friend in this regard. I believe he's out on a routine mission fixing one of the satellites, as you mentioned, Brad.
Right, yeah.
And he stops to watch, I guess, basically The Princess Bride, like a version of The Princess Bride. And suddenly he's like, oh, there's a dead pixel on the screen. And it's Mooncake that flies out of space to land with him.
Land on his face, and yeah, he realizes that he's not trying to eat his face, not some like flesh-eating alien, but just some like cuddly guy.
Yeah, little cuddly dude.
Dang, there's a pixel on the loose. It's eating my face! It's eating my face! It's a face eater! Oh, you're not a face eater. You're a face hugger.
Chookity.
I need a face hugger in my life. You remind me of a friend I used to have a long time ago. How do you like the name? Mooncake. Mooncake it is.
We do get a quick cutaway here to meet Lord Commander for the first time. And I gotta say, he's one of my favorite characters. And we don't get to see a lot of him, but he seems truly devilishly evil. This first scene that we meet him, he's talking with another person he's captured. I believe he's a human. And he mentions to him, like, where is, E3501 or whatever the code name is for Mooncake here. And sometimes this show, for his, like, it is definitely aimed more at adults, even though it has a very childlike look to it. It can get pretty gruesome. And he just, like, does like a force crush of this guy and absolutely splatters the guy into like bone and blood. Like,
right.
It was pretty gross. So then we learn of this mission for Lord Commander to start tracking down where Mooncake is. He does send some of his elite soldiers to fight on this purgatory ship, this like ship that Gary's on. One other tiny thing that is clearly immature about Gary is that all these like worker robots who are there to protect him and like clean up the ship, he writes their names and stuff on their forehead and like Sharpie so he can like identify them.
Right.
There's a great action scene with some of the bad guys versus these robots, and one of the main robots just has boobs written across his forehead. Then I was like, okay, like it's pretty funny to see a fully animated robot in this action pose with laser swords about to attack, and it just says boobs on his forehead.
Yeah.
So there's some great moments here. But this is also, I think, where we meet Avocado, right? He's of all the elite guys left, he kind of like, when they save the day here, he gets left behind, so they kind of take him as a prisoner.
Yeah, and our main character is basically just happy to have a friend.
Yeah, a forced friend, albeit, right? Like,
yeah, that's fine. He doesn't really care. It's just someone who can actually talk to him.
There's a scene at the end of this first episode, the pilot here, where Gary is... he's been trying to play cards this whole time, but he doesn't want to play with Kevin. And so he's got Avocado tied up, but he just puts the cards in his mouth to actually like play cards with him, basically. Right. And there's also a moment here where you learn about what Mooncake is. Not that, I think he is told at the end of that scene where, a Mooncake is a planet destroyer. But earlier when Gary had gotten knocked out of the ship and he was going to die, he didn't have enough oxygen, Mooncake actually, without Gary knowing, because I think he starts to pass out, like totally destroys all these asteroids that are coming forward to him. So this tiny little cute squishy being has immense power.
And somehow gets him back on the ship, which we don't really know how.
It's one of those cartoon things. You're like,
yeah,
sure.
3, 2, 1.
You! And you said I could die! Ha!
You were dead for 5 minutes.
Are you for serious?
I believe the life form saved your life.
Mooncake? Thank you for saving my life.
But this episode also does what I experienced in the second episode, which is they seem to leave a clue or something to make you ask a question to want to watch more, which of course is a good way to tell a story. Keep the viewer engaged. But near the very end here is sort of like, I think Mooncake, I don't quite remember what happens here. Like, it's like Mooncake it was Kevin came in and like started writing on his face, but Mooncake started like standing up for Gary here. But there's
he's like there to protect him because he protected him.
Yeah. But
So they are now a duo.
And there's also a ship that's like following Gary's ship, basically. So we know that Lord Commander is kind of after them at this point. So that was the first episode. I think it sets it up nicely. I think you get way more character development, and you get to learn a little bit more about Quinn and Avocado in the second episode of the series. The second episode, a lot of it was... Why did they even go to the secondary planet? I can't quite remember.
Man, I don't know, but for some reason they're there, and they can only be there for a short amount of time because basically his brain's gonna explode out of his head in like 2 hours. So I don't know why they were there unless they were there to get Little Avocado. Maybe, or he just happened to be there.
I also know that it was a planet like picture any like Star Wars kind of setting where there's a bazaar and there's all these street vendors and that kind of stuff. And if you don't have papers, you will get street meat. If you don't have papers, you will get identified. So there's a great bit of scenes that actually were some of my favorite stuff I've seen, where Gary has to go to this like black market cellar and buy the skin of some being that would be on this planet and like crawl into it, and it's super gross. But what that leads to in a great scene later, dude, was the scene with the kids and the dad.
Yeah, where they think their mom is back and she's alive, and they're hugging her and being like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest moment ever. We were told you were dead.
I love you more." And they're tugging on her.
And they pull her skin apart off of Gary, and it's basically like, "Not again."
Oh my God, it was so disgusting. But I was like, "What are the odds? This is ridiculous." That comes up later in the episode too, where like Gary and Avocado are falling through some tunnel, and of course they have flying cars, and he lands on the car of this family again, and he's like, "Hey, it's me, your mom," or like something like that. But what you mainly see in this episode is you meet Little Avocado, that he's trapped and in this soundproof room, and Avocado is trying to get him out, but what Little Avocado is actually trying to warn him is that it's a trap. He was sent here to kind of be recaptured because I think at this point Lord Commander clearly knows either he's maybe working with Gary or basically not there to get Mooncake back for him. So kind of develops some more interesting stuff here. What I was more interested in, dude, is I have a question about Quinn, and I don't know if we can answer it. But Quinn is clearly working for these elite pilots back on, I'm assuming, Earth. They have a scene here where there's clearly a male-dominated field and all the men are jackasses, and they don't let her do anything, even when she has ideas. So eventually she takes a ship and heads off onto her own because she thinks some galactic, some cosmic thing is happening, some occurrence is starting to happen. I'm not sure if that refers to sort of the pursuit of Mooncake in this case, but there's a scene here where Gary is back on the ship. We found out that the whole ruse about your brain's going to blow up was a lie. Hugh just wanted him to be back on the ship in time. And he gets knocked out by one of the people that stowed aboard the ship, or like this other elite soldier that jumped on. And it's revealed to be a woman who looks exactly like Quinn. However, she has a slightly different colored hair. She's almost got like robotic, like a glowing blue mark on her forehead. There's there's bits about her that I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Like, I think, oh no, it wasn't even Gary. Sorry, it was Kevin. She like knocks him out and puts something into his back and says like, someday you're going to protect Gary or you're going to save Gary or something.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
So I feel like that's what this show has done so far for me. It's set up some plots that I think are very interesting, and I'm definitely going to check out the rest of it because it's got a great look to it. Like the animation's top notch.
Yeah, and the art style's great, yeah.
But yeah, I had a good time with this. What were your thoughts generally on this one, Brad?
Yeah, I liked it. I will probably finish it. It's 10 episodes, so I will. There's a good chance I will probably watch it all tonight while I'm working.
She's just like, I'm going to be done in a minute.
It's done, yeah.
Yeah, I think it does a great job of just the animation looks great. The characters are fun. Again, I wish they wouldn't resort to so much like of the adolescent type humor with Gary. Like some of that stuff just gets a little bit long for me that I'm like, okay.
But it's a cartoon, so you have to have that like childish nature to it.
You do. I guess I wish.
Otherwise, they would have. It's like any other space reboot show that's out there.
Yeah, and I think this. I'm not going to go out on a limb. I don't watch Rick and Morty, but I did read a review that mentioned that this show is great if you like need more of a sci-fi adventure type show like Rick and Morty, and this doesn't dive into nearly as many, at least so far, like what I would like deep topics of things. But
yeah,
I think
I guess I wouldn't. It's not the same to me, but
yeah. I guess just if you're looking for more sci-fi stuff, here's a cartoon for you, I guess.
But that's like, oh, you like Star Wars? Do you need more sci-fi stuff? Here's Star Trek.
It's kind of the same. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not the same.
You like space stuff? Here you go. I know what you're saying, but this is a reviewer. This was not me.
Yeah, that reviewer sucks.
I will email them promptly and let them know.
Yeah, was it like George 516 from Oklahoma? Yeah, he sucks.
What do you got against George? You guys go way back. But I think if you're looking for a new show, like it's some pretty light fare, honestly, at least so far in the first couple of episodes. I think it does a really great job with pacing and keeping you interested in the scenes as they go along. We've already talked to death about its quality, but I think that's great as well. So I think there's a lot to like about Final Space. So hopefully it delivered in some regard because TBS decided to renew it for a second season.
Yeah.
Especially when Fox is just canceling all of their shows. So who knows? So maybe next week we'll have more to add in the pre-show or something quickly about Final Space if we end up finishing it because it's all on demand. Like TBS seems to put it all up for free, so that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Let's get out of here. Brad, where can people find out more about you when you're not recording Toon Talk Weekly?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's @brad, and then my blog is digitalhitchhiker.com.
Great, guys, go check them out over there. You can follow me on Twitter @Jacob Williams. Of course, if you want more Toon Talk Weekly, we're all over the place. Toon Talk Weekly, at Toon Talk Weekly on Twitter, Facebook.com/Toon Talk Weekly, Instagram.com/Toon Talk Weekly. Also over on Google Plus as Toon Talk Weekly as well. Our email, let us know what you think of the show or any episodes you'd like us to talk about. Maybe even have any more to do about Final Space. We'd love to learn more. toontalkweekly@gmail.com, and finally the main hub for the show, toontalkweekly.com, where every single episode for the last few years is up there for your enjoyment.
Nice.
Yeah, man, this was a fun one. I definitely that was 2 2018 shows in a row, so we might have to go a little bit older next week.
Whoa, okay.
50s, a little older. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. We will be back next week with another cartoon.
Take care.
To learn more about the show, visit toontalkweekly.com or follow us on Twitter @ToonTalkWeekly.